Hello, everyone. I'm Stephen West. This is Philosophize This. Now, these two groups fighting with each other has become a mainstay of our age. It's like the moss that grows on the north side of a tree. In fact, at one point, the postmodernists and the scientific realists actually went to war with each other. It's been called the science wars of the 1990s. The battlefield was epistemology. How do we know what we know? And both sides came to the battlefield with some pretty heavy artillery as to why the other side was full of complete morons. Doubt it, and you can see this war still playing itself out in comment sections all across the internet. Postmodernists, believing that knowledge is a social construction, may look at a scientific realist posting a comment and characterize them as a complete idiot. That they're essentially like a religious zealot on behalf of science. Understanding reality to them just means to understand how a bunch of atoms and molecules relate to each other. That what? What, you don't realize how everything, down to the language you use, the concepts you're studying, human reality is more than just a bunch of atoms. You don't realize how much humanity you're projecting onto the natural world? You're no different than your supposedly primitive ancestors, a postmodernist might say. But then on the other hand, a scientific realist on one of these comment sections might see a postmodernist and think that they're an idiot as well. Wait, so knowledge is entirely a social construction? Like what, all these different ways of socially constructing reality are equally valid? We can't have any reasonable way of determining how one way of understanding reality is better than another? Clearly, scientists are in contact with something enduring that's out there. To deny that is just to border on insanity. And you can spend your life battling in these comment sections, poised on one side or the other of this oversimplified debate. Countless books have been written, and yet they still continue to argue. And Bruno Latour would probably want to pop in at this point and say, hey, by the way, if you're ever expecting these two sides to come to any sort of ceasefire in this war that's going on, you may be waiting around for a while. They're looking for the solution to their disagreement in entirely the wrong place. Bruno Latour thinks the real problem between the postmodernists and the scientific realists is a metaphysical problem. They both agree on a metaphysical premise that we've put way too much faith in since the dawn of the Enlightenment: the assumed separation between human and non-human entities. Put another way, this is the purification, as Latour says, of the world of objects, which are to be studied by scientists, nature, and the world of subjects, which are to be studied by politics, culture. Written into the constitution of modernity is the tacit agreement that the best way we're going to arrive at a progressively nuanced understanding of the world around us is by separating nature and culture. Politics shouldn't be brought into the sciences. Culture is a realm all its own to be studied. That the best way to progress is by purifying these respective fields. This is a hallmark of modern thought. This is something most people just take for granted. And this is the metaphysical agreement that the postmodernist and the scientific realist need in order to be at odds with each other, specialists on either side of this polarity of nature and culture. But what if that polarity didn't actually exist? What if the modern separation between nature and culture never actually happened? What if instead it's just been an illusion that's allowed us to intellectually justify a faulty way of conducting science, an incomplete method of analyzing culture, and has led to a structure to society that is destroying the world as we know it? Well, in that world then, the postmodernist and the scientist would quickly realize that they have very little to argue about, because all of a sudden they're on the same team. All of a sudden, there'd be no reason to assume that we need to keep culture completely separate from nature and vice versa. In that world, to Bruno Latour, it's not that we need to get beyond our modern constitution in any postmodern sense, or that we need to preserve our modern constitution in the scientific realist sense. Neither of these is solving any problems with being modern, because when you look at the reality of the world to Latour, we have never been modern.